I'm Michelle from the Starling Tribune, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're listening to now, the opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to episode 112 of Better Podcasting. Today, we get to talk about all the changes I made to my podcasting gear over the last year. Spoilers, it's only half of my improvements from 2016.
In this week's Better Podcasting Download and Better Pod Back combined, we're going to talk about listening to podcasts and one of them new Apple Watcher thingamajig doohickey babobs
that I can't wear. Okay, Lauren, happy holidays, and let's bring Better Podcasting home for 2017.
Welcome to Better Podcasting, a show where we talk about podcast tips, tools, and best practices to help you succeed with your podcast. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we podcast purely out of the love and fun of it. Podcasting is our hobby, and we recognize that it's yours too. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at betterpodcasting.com. Here's your host for the show, Stephen John Drew and Stargate Pioneer.
Welcome to the end of Better Podcasting for 2017. I am Stephen John Drew, and with me, of course, is the wonderful Stargate Pioneer.
I hope everybody's had a happy 2017. Welcome to 2018 if you happen to be listening to us throughout the week. This is exciting for us. This is our gear ending at the end of the year episodes that we do, just to remind everybody of the changes that we've made. But before we get to that, we have this great giveaway going on until the end of January 2018 of an Audio-Technica AT2005 microphone. This is an excellent microphone to get started or upgrade your gear if you happen to be on something else. It has both USB and XLR, which you can actually output simultaneously. Also has a nice little stand that you can take mobily and a pouch. This is a great takeaway for you, and you get it for free. All you have to do is get a hold of us and tell us what is your favorite Better Podcasting moment of 2017. You can get us it in video form, which is our preferred form since we do stream on YouTube, or you can get us an audio file. Since you're a podcaster, you probably know how to record an audio file, or you could just send us text and I will do a dramatic reading of it. You can get it to us at our Twitter account at BetterPod. You can email us contest@betterpodcasting.com, or you can leave a note for Stephen on our Facebook page.
And by the way, if you are going to email us, I'm going to request, this is just you and me here now, this is you and me talking, I'm going to request that you send a little request there at the beginning that SP reads it in like a poetry slam style. I think that he'd be really good, put a little beat to the back there, and he can read it like poetic. I think that's what he should do.
So I did watch Legion on FX, which is a Marvel-based X-Men show, and the whole beat poetry thing, it's not me, but yeah, I'll try to do it. It's just, you're going to have to give me the words to do it in because I'm not a beat poetry sort of dude.
How can you define a microphone, man? You just can't. You're so square.
And I'm there.
Also, while you're emailing us, please do let us know, how have you saved your podcast? This is something that we like to solicit here and share those. Couple weeks back, we had the wonderful Jason Bryant, which, by the way, again, thank you, Jason, for filling in for me. We had Jason share a story while he was co-hosting on how he saved his podcast. It could be something like that. Could be something smaller. Could be something bigger. Just let us know, how have you saved your podcast? Now, the reason why we do this is so that we can all share together. We all can learn together. You never know what your story and who your story is going to help. So please do send that to us and let us know, how have you saved your podcast? But let's go ahead and talk about SP's gear.
Last episode, we discussed Steven's gear acquisitions and improvements over 2017. This week, I get to talk about mine. This is a fun annual tradition that we have started 2 years ago, and it began just because we wanted to talk about a gear to give everybody a sense of what it took to podcast and what we actually had in our studios. And then it became a way for us to benchmark where we were at the beginning of the year and where we're at the end of the year. So it's a great gear evolution. And boy, when you think things haven't changed over the past year, they actually sure have, because we're able to benchmark what has happened in a year.
I'm just going to stop you right here, because we should just talk about the best gear change that you made and I don't know why you went back from it, because you made a very, very good decision. You got rid of the Steven Jandreau robot and you replaced that robot with the wonderful Emily Prokop, yet you brought back the Steven Jandreau robot. I don't get it. That was like your best purchase of all times.
Well, what had happened, if you have watched Westworld, is we had sent the Steven robot back for reprogramming, and that just took a little time to upload the new programming. And then we had Emily on for that time period where we had sent you back basically as an RMA.
Oh, I got you. I am faulty. So there you go.
You are still faulty. The RMA didn't work, much like your Zoom L12, actually, with the problem there. But yes, just to reiterate, the reason we do the show is not to brag about our gear, but it's to help you understand that we have slowly acquired gear since we started podcasting. This will be my 7th full year of podcasting. This will be Steven's, I believe, 9th, almost 10th year of, this will be your 10th anniversary of podcasting actually this year. So this has not happened overnight. We have gained our podcasting over time. And because we do better podcasting, we actually make a few gear acquisitions that we normally wouldn't for our own podcasting. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to do this if you podcast, but it gives you an excellent way to see our gear progression. All right, Steven, are you ready to start my 2017? You remember in 2016, I had 37 changes.
Wow.
I don't have that many this time.
You had 36.
Oh, I got like half of that. So let's talk about what I started this year. By the way, I don't think we mentioned this last week. We usually wait to get our gear on sale. Definitely presents also help. We did talk about that last week, but we usually wait for our gear to go on sale. And we always actually bounce our gear acquisitions off each other just to make sure it makes sense and that we're not getting stuff because we think it's cool. It is stuff that we need for our studios and is stuff usually on sale. And by the way, I listened to my episode last year, which was episode 60. And I said, yeah, I do my own car repairs so I could spend more money on. What the heck was I thinking? Because I still have a car that's literally a few feet off of that area in my garage that is without an engine. And it's taking 2 parts of my 3-car garage because engine is in one part and the car's in the, I got to get that thing done. That's my chief thing for 2018 is to actually get that engine back together and either sell the car or actually make it work. I don't know, one of the two.
NSP talked briefly about how we bounce the ideas off of each other. So it's not just something that we're purchasing because it's cool. You know, it's never stopped him from buying that wonderful newer NW700 microphone that he wanted. You know, I told him not to buy it and he bought it. So there you go.
In all fairness, I did not buy that. That was given to me, and I will open it. I will unbox it. I will review it in comparison to some of the microphones that I have. I do have a newer NW700. Thank you very much, Bandrew, from the Bandrew Says podcast and also the Podcastage YouTube channel. Thank you very much. So, but we're not going to start talking about microphones. We're going to start talking about my computer. The big thing that I changed with my computer this year was not necessarily too much about it, but I did put another hard drive in it. So this is the hard drive that was in there. This was an upgrade from the original storage hard drive. It's a 4 terabyte storage hard drive, and it is actually a 3.5 inch hard disk drive. And it was becoming too big or too much, too full. So I needed a bigger one. So I went ahead and I bought this HGST 6 terabyte drive. It was on sale. And yeah, that's what I've got in the machine right now. I formatted it though with a different format that was more ubiquitous between Mac and Windows, and I have no idea why they did that because it's never going to go in a Mac, but it did take some storage capability away. So instead of gaining all the storage that I thought, like the 2 terabytes worth of storage, it was like 500 gigabytes of storage that I increased. Oh, crap. So I need to go back and reformat it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for a sale for an 8 terabyte drive, and I'm going to throw that in the machine as well. So that'll be a key upgrade in 2018. So that was my big drive for the computer. The computer has worked great so far. The video card is great. The memory is great. Everything about the computer is great, except for this actual storage drive for all of my podcast files, which when you do video podcasts, it actually, and you keep the raw files, because we do, in case we have to go back and re-edit it. These actually take a lot of storage, and it is why that I needed to change out this 4 terabyte drive, which is still workable. It's still full of stuff. It's a backup drive basically for me now in case that 6 terabyte drive fails. So there I go there. Also, I did some software upgrades. I bought the Movie Studio 14.0, and it was, I believe, the platinum version that I got, and I'm slowly ramping up to it. If you remembered last year, I talked about the Corel Video Studio X9 that I had purchased, which is great. It was a great addition over just the normal movie editor that comes with Windows. And I'm finding that this was an amazing purchase, Movie Studio 14.0. If you do any sort of video editing whatsoever, this is great. Not only is it a more professional style editor, but the audio it renders is a better quality into an MP4 than Corel did. So that's something to consider as well. Does it work with the sort of files that you work with? Yes, it works with FLAC. We actually transfer our files in FLAC now because it's a lot less data that we're going back and forth. It's like a fourth to a third of the size of the WAV files. It's still lossless, and we're able to actually inject those files directly into the Movie Studio 14.0. So that's great. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to insert VSTs into it, because right now I'm round tripping audio back and forth into it, which is not optimal, but it actually gave me a window into using the program. So I'm okay with it. Steven's like, "What are you doing, SP?" But hey, it's the way I started, and I will start using VSTs. Talking about VSTs, I added the iZotope RX5, and it is a great suite. I use the declicker all the time. All my tracks, I run that through. And I also have used other components of it, give or take, if I need it. But it's a great suite. If you manage to get it, the RX Elements or the RX6 suite, I highly encourage you to do it. I would wait for a sale, because as a hobby podcaster, you're going to need the sale. It's hundreds of dollars if you don't. The other thing that I added as a plugin was the Alliance SPL Deverb, and I have used that quite a bit, especially in my video files, because I'm actually using another sort of microphone. I'm not using a dynamic microphone as I do my video files anymore. So that is definitely something that I have needed. Now, last year I talked about that I was going to ramp up to do Steven style production, and I was going to put 12 monitors in my room, the actual video monitors that we could do our video podcast with. Well, it turns out that my internet connection isn't stable enough to actually do what Steven does. So I did not add any additional monitors this past year. I did look into them from time to time, but because I didn't find that amazing deal that I would need, and I did not have the internet connection, I just pushed that off at least for another year. It might be another year in addition to this year as well before I start ramping up on monitors. I did increase my internet connection. It wasn't that great of an increase, but it was an increase. I was getting 60 megabits down and 5 up. It sometimes did 6 up. And that's not enough to send multiple HD streams out to do what we do. So on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., I normally have 2 or 3 co-hosts. So if I do the same thing that Steven does, I'm sending out 3 different video streams to my 3 co-hosts on 3 different Skype sessions. And then I'm sending out a stream to something like YouTube Live or Mixler or something like that. And so I've got up to 4 streams going out. That is not enough to do it with 6 megabits up. And even though I've increased to 100 down and 10 up is still not enough to deal with that. So I'm going to hold off on doing the grandiose video production live until I get better upload speeds. One thing that I did add is I've noticed that I use a Bluetooth keyboard. Steven talked about his great keyboard, which is not Bluetooth last week. I use this Bluetooth keyboard and I need it because my computer's way off to the side and I just don't want to run another cord over there. The problem is it sat down in a pocket on the side of the desk, and this desk is a really harsh wood cherry desk, and it takes a while for that signal to go back and forth, and sometimes it gets blocked. So I needed to actually get a computer stand to raise the computer up, and I put it on a couple of old bookshelf speakers originally, and it's just not stable. I can't do any work on it because the speakers didn't move back and forth too much. So what I did is I asked a few people what they could do for me. I went to the same people that did my audio rack, which is Audio Racks with an X, by the way. They just never got back to me in a timely fashion. I know they're busy doing a lot of other bigger projects. This is kind of a smaller project, but Diami Ploki, who's a listener of Better Podcasting, who has the Modern Woodworkers Association podcast, he said, I can do that for you. So I commissioned a little computer desk stand from him. Now, why did I do this versus a normal desk stand that I could just buy somewhere? It's because I wanted exact dimensions made. Now, I could have done this myself, but he was able to do it for me in a lot less time than I was able to spend some time working on cars, and it just works great. Matter of fact, I just installed some new gear in my podcast desk, and I was able just to pull that out, slide it out, and push it back in. It worked great. It worked exactly how it's meant to. So that was awesome. If you're looking at the picture on YouTube, you can see the base of my computer on the stand, and to the left of that, you will see tucked in there 2 USB external drives. I actually increased the drive from a 6 terabyte drive to an 8 terabyte drive this year. So I was able to get 2 terabytes more of storage right there. And that is backup for me. That is here locally. And I'm glad that I have it. So there you go. There's a 2-for-1 in that picture. You see both the stand and the Seagate 8 terabyte external USB 3.0 drive. All right, moving on into other things that I have purchased this past year. And guess what, Steven? I purchased a couple of microphones to try out. And as you mentioned last week, we're not going to mention every microphone that we purchased because we do that for review purposes for our YouTube channel, for the podcast. But I just want to actually say a couple of things about the one. I got the Rode Procaster. Now, I decided not to use the Procaster because it was very plosive to me. Now, what I'm going to do in 2018 is I'm going to take this pop filter that's on my Electro Voice RE320. I'm going to install it on the Procaster, and I'm going to see if that takes care of the plosive issues. And I'm going to see if this Rode Procaster actually works for me. So this is still in play. Another one that is still not in play just because it has too much of a boomy bass voice for me is the Audio-Technica BP40. So I'm going to keep this around for comparison purposes, but it is just not for me. I love the way it sounds on Steven's voice. He loves the way it sounds because he has tried other microphones as well. And he has stayed with the BP40. So he really likes that microphone. Just doesn't work for me and my voice. This is a case where frequency response alone and the characteristics of the microphone do not tell the full story because your voice is going to be different on each microphone because your voice has a frequency curve to it and a frequency response. So it depends on how the two react. It depends on how actual projection your voice is into the microphone. It depends on a lot of things. So and it depends on the acoustics of the room.
And of course, it depends on whether or not you want to deliver your podcast in the best way possible.
That's right. Where is your Shure SM7B when you're saying that NPR style voice there? So yeah, it's great. And by the way, Steven did a great comparison of a lot of these microphones over on our YouTube channel, Gonna Geek Gear, which you can find at youtube.com/Gonna Geek Gear and see all these big broadcast microphones compared with each other. And right now I'm using the Electro Voice RE320. Like I said, I'm going to try out the Rode Procaster a little bit more next year. Another thing that I've added to the studio, I'm actually wearing them right now, is the Shure SRH 840 headphones. Now I'm wearing them now. I'm still in trial mode, but it's been an extended trial mode over the Audio-Technica ATH M40X headphones. Now these are the more advanced version of the studio monitoring headphones that Steven has. Steven has the SRH 440s, but he upgraded them with the cups that go on the 840s. So we're actually wearing the same headphones with the same cups when we actually wear headphones, and Steven's not wearing his in-ear monitors. I will do a full review of these over on the YouTube channel, the Gonna Geek Gear YouTube channel. But I would say any of these headphones, if you're trying to upgrade from like really crappy earbuds or something like that, would be awesome to use. I also tried, by the way, the AKG K240 semi-open headphones. And I will tell you, for my purposes as a podcaster, I will never try a semi-open or an open ear cup earphone monitoring headphones again. It just won't happen. I screwed up my production for like a week before I figured out what was actually going on. I was hearing more of the room than I normally do. I wasn't actually able to monitor the actual sound. So you can catch this full review over on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/GonnaGeekGear, and you can find out everything about it. Now, the ear cups are different. And if these ear cups on the Shure or the Audio Technica are too small for you, you might need a larger circular ear cup to go over your ears as well. I'm not going to say one's better for you or one's not good for you. I will say what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. So there you go. On to my mobile gear, because this has been a major change in 2017. I have definitely changed quite a bit. Now, I haven't changed what type of microphone that I want to use on the road in a mobile situation like a con panel, but I have changed how many I have. So right now I have 6 Sennheiser MD46 microphones. I have used them on the road. I used them at the last panel that we did at Gen Con. And if you go over to the YouTube channel, you can see these microphones. I got 4 of them on the table in use, and they are awesome. I have a combination of cases because some of them I got on eBay and they came without a case. So I actually ordered the $12 just pouch, the fabric pouch for it that's lined, that will protect them as I transport them. But the rest of them are in the hard case. So they're really well protected microphones. They can take a beating, by the way. They're made to, I've seen these microphones used in hurricanes, which actually, it scares me a little bit for the microphones that I see on eBay. But yeah, I've seen them used by Weather Channel personnel that are covering hurricanes, and they work great in those situations.
We should probably have you field test that sometime. You know, that's what we should do. Send you out in a hurricane.
I'll you know what? I'll do full Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back and do it in a blizzard this winter if I'm in the middle of one.
You better take one when you go traveling.
If I have space. I'm trying to
toss that out there last minute while you got everything ready to go out the door. Yep.
And as Steven will tell you, he loves the way that these sound, especially on Cody's voice. He said it was amazing on Cody's voice, the way they sounded, right, Steven?
Yeah, absolutely. These things, I heard how good they were. And quite honestly, I didn't expect the sound that we got from that panel. The panel that we ended up capturing with them at Gen Con was amazing. The audio was great. And you got to picture this. There's 3 people sitting side by side at a table. So they're really like almost shoulder to shoulder. Absolutely. I had to go through, and on each track, because SP multi-tracked it, I ended up going through and cutting out when people were talking. But if I had just spent a little bit of time gating, I could have gated that just fine, because the noise rejection on them were phenomenal. Obviously, the person in the middle had a lot more noise rejection, but or had a lot more noise in their track because they got 2 people right beside them, but they were just amazing. And I gotta say that the sound was just great, especially with Cody Goff. So if you see Cody Goff around, he's at Producer Cody on Twitter. Tweet him and say, you sound great on an MD46.
He does indeed. Now, another thing that I grabbed for these panels to actually grab video on the road is I didn't want to drain the battery down on my iPhone, which is a great camera, by the way. And I have several older models of iPhones, which are good enough to do panel coverage for a YouTube channel. But I went out and I got this Canon Vixia HF R700 camcorder. And it's grabbed a couple extra batteries for it. It's worked out good for us so far. It gets the entire panel. And if you grab a couple of these or put your phone on one side and these on the others, you can actually do some switching back and forth. if you run into any actual editing issues that you need to actually cut the file for whatever is the case. But this is all, it wasn't that expensive. It was only a couple $100. So it's great at the 1080 HD quality, which you can get for a couple $100, and actually is really mobile too. So that's awesome. Now, what I wanted to do though is the microphone on this is not all that great. It's a condenser microphone. For a condenser microphone, it's pretty good, but it's not the quality that we need. So I went out and I got a Zoom shotgun capsule, the SGH6 shotgun capsule, so I could put it on my H5 and I could mount it on top of this pretty cheap U-grip. So unfortunately, I couldn't hot shoe mount anything on top of the camcorder, but I got this U-mount so I could actually hot shoe mount a shotgun microphone or the H5 or both. Actually, it's a triple header shotgun mount or on top hot shoe mount. So it's an awesome little thing. And I've used this to record panels, to record actual convention scenes and stuff like that. It's been a great buy. It was cheap. It's not very collapsible though, so it'll take up space in whatever bag that you have, but it worked great, I think, for what I used it for. Now, what do I carry all this stuff in? Because this actually starts to add up in terms of space, not necessarily weight, but space. So everybody's heard of these Pelican cases. Pelican cases are expensive. So what I did is I went over to B&H Photo and I got a case that is a SKB I-Series case that is just like a Pelican case. Now, this thing is pretty robust. It has phenomenal locks to it. It actually seals, so it's waterproof, and it's got a lot of space in it. You can buy them in different sizes. The one I got was a couple $100. It was still cheaper than a Pelican case, and I was able to fit my 2 tripods in it, my banner stand in it, the 6 Sennheiser microphones, the recorders, and the camcorders, and everything in there. And I can take this wherever. So if I ever go to a convention that I have to fly on, I can lock this case, throw it in the not the carry-on, but I can check it, and I'm pretty confident that things will get from point A to point B without breaking, as long as I pad everything in it. There's no actual pad. It didn't come with any padding, but I've created padding out of different pads that I had, foam pads and whatever in the house. But everything that I need to mic up a 6-person panel is in there. Everything that I need to cover for interviews is in there. So it's pretty good. And I think Jason Bryant, who's on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, he has a similar case. I think his is in fact a Pelican case. And when he goes to different places like North Dakota, he'll take that case with him. So that's where I stole that idea from.
And also, I've got a suggestion for you when it comes to actually shipping and padding it. What you should do is just buy a few. You probably need 10 of them, but 10 Blue Yetis, and just surround everything with them, and then they'll just take the impact. So that's what I would do. I would use them as the padding.
The foam padding that comes, the windscreen that comes with the Blue Yeti, that would probably work just on its own.
But the Blue Yetis would just offer superior protection because they're a little thicker.
So another thing that I got, by the way, if you saw it, if you were on YouTube and you saw how the panel was configured, I use these New Era microphone stands. They're great stands. They don't weigh all that much. I have had, the heavy weight based microphone stands, which are great for stability purposes, but for mobility purposes, they really suck. And you cannot take them through airport security without thinking that there's something that's in your bag that shouldn't be there. So these stands, on the other hand, they're light, they're telescoping, they come with their own bags, they're great, and I've had to buy more of them in order to mic up a 6-person panel with those Sennheiser MD46 microphones, so they are great as well. Back in the studio, by the way, I bought these last year, but did not actually install them until like a month or 2 ago. I bought new studio monitor speakers. And these studio monitor speakers are JBL LSR305. So they're 5-inch speakers, and they're stereo or speaker monitors. Now, these aren't the monitors that you're seeing in front of the computers. These are called monitors because they have relatively flat responses. I think these are actually boosted in the bass. I will tell you, these replace the audio M Audio AV40s that I had that were 4 inches. And I don't know if it's just the increase from the 4-inch to the 5-inch speakers. They are loud. I've had to decrease the volume coming out of my mixing board to my control room speakers by more than 25% in order just to not blow myself out of the room. And oftentimes it's even less than that. So the clarity of the sound that I get from these versus the M Audio AV40s, it's amazing. I love these speakers. Now, do you need them? No. You can do fine with the 3-inch like Mackie speakers, the 4-inch Mackie or M Audio speakers if you're a hobby podcaster. This is my ultimate speakers that I'm going to have to monitor and to edit with, because I can't fit anything bigger in this room. So 5 inches is what I'm going to have. Might I try something else in the future? Maybe, but these were on sale last year at a great price. And I just don't see another great price coming my way in the next couple of years. So these JBL LSR305 speaker monitors are amazing. I highly recommend them if you can get them on sale. You're going to need 2 of them. You can buy just one. You're going to need 2, and you're going to need an ability to power them because they're each powered separately. So you're going to have a plug for both. And you're going to have some sort of either XLR or 1/4-inch inputs into them separately. That is different because the AV40s, all I had to do is run one power cord to one side and either the RCA or the 1/4-inch to one side and then speaker wire from one side to the other. So this was a little bit different for me to set up, and I actually had to run some additional cables to do it. Amazing sound. I'm so glad I did this. All right. Another thing that I added that I got as a Christmas present last year was this chair that I'm sitting on right now. I'm not even going to bother telling you what it is. I don't recommend it because it squeaks very much so. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure, I know I've had to, I'm pretty sure Steven's had to edit out some squeaks from time to time from this chair. And the quest for the perfect podcasting chair for SP continues. Didn't actually get one for Christmas this year. I'm looking forward to finding another sale next year.
Before you go off of that there, I should say that I forgot to put that on my list last year, was a new chair as well. And we talked actually briefly about it earlier in the year, which is why I forgot to put it on my list. But the chairs are definitely something that I highly recommend keeping at the forefront when you are considering podcast purchases, because if you're on a really, really, really uncomfortable chair, it just makes it that much more painful to podcast. So I highly recommend it. Now, maybe you are somebody who does the stand podcast. I've considered it a few times. That's a good option, but I will say that a chair, it can be nice. I am relatively happy with mine. It's a little louder than I wanted, but it is very comfortable. And mine is a Serta Hensley chair. A Serta Hensley.
I will say, as far as comfort goes, I'm comfortable in it. It just creaks every time I move in it. So I can't recommend it to any podcaster, because if you're going to be podcasting, if you're going to be talking, if you're animated at all while you're recording, you're going to make this thing squeak. And or creak or clack or whatever. I can't recommend it. So I'm not going to. Another thing that I'm definitely going to do in 2018 is I'm going to do a better job of cable management. I've been toying with that over the past year, and I do have a car engine I got to put back together. After that, my next thing is going to be recarpeting this whole area, which is going to include cable management. So I'm going to actually detail where all the lines go. I'm going to do a line diagram, basically, and I'm going to make sure everything is where it should be, that audio is separate from electronics, and that everything is basically channeled, and that I can get to the channels. Like if I need to take a cable out, if a cable goes bad, I want to be able to do that. So I can't like wrap them every 3 inches in zip ties. That's just not going to work. So I have explored different opportunities of cable management. There's those zip tie bags that you can get. You can just do different things as long as you can get into the cables and take one out without disturbing the rest of the pack. I think that's what I'm going to do. I also this year got an iPhone 8 Plus. Now, this iPhone is been amazing. It's actually been used for some podcasting over the time, and I would recommend it over the iPhone 10, iPhone X, whatever you want to call it. I've seen so many pluses and minuses of both, and that I've been actually trying to comfort myself that I made the right choice. And I think I have, because from what I use the phone for, the iPhone 8 Plus is a better suited and more cost-effective thing than the iPhone 10. That might not be the case next year. The premium phone might be even better than the non-premium phone. Who knows what Apple's going to make available next year. And I might add that I will even concede that the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL are the two, in my opinion, best phones on the market. So if you want to jump off the Apple train and go into Android, you have my blessing. There's a lot of great phones out there, including the Pixel, the Galaxy S8, all great phones. Just your ability to listen to podcasts might be affected because you're going to be off that Apple architecture. So there you go. I also picked up an iPad Mini 4 this year. I have used it on the road as a soundboard, and that's addition to the iPad Mini 2 that I still have in the studio. I also picked up for my video reviews, I picked up a Mic J. It's Mic J 044 made by JK. And I'm holding up the empty case right now because I'm not going to actually take the lavalier out of its hiding place with the Zoom H5. But this is the case that it came in, which I purchased from Amazon. It's been a good microphone. I might actually, in 2018, look into some other lavalier microphones. But for what I paid for this, it's been amazing so far, and it's done the job. So if you want to hear all about this, I actually did a special video. I actually did a video review of my Keurig, which I used this one. So you can go over to youtube.com/GoodToGeekGear and listen to me use that. Another thing that I did is I purchased a second backdrop. I have a backdrop behind me right now, but it's basically in the studio. I got a second backdrop so I could take it outside. I could do pictures. I could take gear pictures with it. And I did some unboxings with it. It's great. You basically, if you're on YouTube right now, you're seeing it stood up in the kitchen with a second actual photo drop. And it was a really good decision. Another thing that I did is I tried to repurpose some lights that I had purchased in the past. It didn't work out all that great. It worked for the videos that I filmed, but they basically fell apart as I was taking it down. So I went out and I bought some newer actual umbrella lights. So the next time I do video, I will use them and it'll be good. And there is one final podcast gear purchase that I made in 2017 that actually is my favorite and most prized piece of podcast gear. And I'm going to ask Steven, do you know what that is?
I do. I remember when you purchased that mirror for your desk.
No, you're actually hearing it right now. Yes, the chimes from the Villains and Vegans podcast, which was on Last Man Standing. Kyle and Ryan did it, and I actually bought my own practical sound effects because of it, and I sent some to Steven as well because he was a big Last Man Standing fan.
Oh, we were talking about the poetry slam thing. Why don't we do it as relaxation music?
You can do whatever you want to. I might edit it out if I'm actually doing the production, though.
Oh, well, that was a good list, SP. I gotta say, lots of really good things to think about. And I think a lot of good food for thought for people who might be considering some next steps. I will say this, that the couple things that really stood out to me on your list was, number one, that shotgun mic, the SGH6 shotgun mic from Zoom. Was very impressed with this. I honestly don't feel that you've really demoed it yet. It's something that you've sent me a sample, a little internal sample, and it was in your garage. And I gotta say, it sounded phenomenal. The only other really sort of public thing is at a panel. And I've got to say, close proximity, this thing sounds awesome. I am considering buying one myself for my H6 because my H6 is probably eventually going to come out of my in-studio chain, and I was really impressed. The other one that sure stood out for me this year, just based off of your feedback, was the LSR 305s. I didn't think you were going to hear a big difference when you upgraded, and the fact that you've heard such a big upgrade or such a big change is pretty cool. And being louder is always good because then you're not straining to hear. If you're really trying to master something, a lot of times you got to turn it up a bit so you can hear all the subtleties. So that's really nice. And I got to say, those were two pretty interesting things that I heard about on your list this year.
One thing that I talked about last week that I didn't go over, I actually purchased a used Zoom H6. I did it because I didn't want to dismount my H6 that I'm currently using in the studio for actual podcasting. I'm using it right now. And I wanted to be able to take a 6-track recorder on the road with me to do like panel recordings and stuff like that. So I got one of these and I bought an extra XLR module to go with it. So this was to round out my actual mobile gear, and I got it used, and it's amazing. So when I bought my H6, it was at $399. Yeah, it was at $400 because I got it right when it first came out. And this I got for under $200 for the H6, and of course I paid for more for the XLR capsule, the EXH-6 XLR capsule that adds 2 additional XLR mount plugins to it. But I got this used for under $200, and it worked fantastic. So yes, you can get used gear that's just 2-3 years old that is still amazing quality and can do great things for you as a hobby podcaster. I would just say buyer beware, because you never know if somebody dropped it, if something went wrong with the electronics on the inside, if somebody's batteries went bad in it and it leaked all that crap in there. So just buyer beware. But if you get a good one for the amount of money that you pay for it, it's amazing. So we talked about it last week, and I just wanted to make sure I brought it up this week.
Awesome. So thanks so much for sharing your list. And again, like we said last week, if you have questions about any of our gear, please do get in touch with us through any of the ways. You can always go ahead and find us at podcast@betterpodcasting.com. You can reach us at betterpodcasting.com. Head on over to twitter.com/betterpod, or just head on over to facebook.com/betterpodcasting. We're always happy to answer your questions and maybe help you with that decision. And with that, let's get into our last segment of 2017. This is a combination Better Podcasting download and Better Pod back combined. I'll throw that in there a second time.
Welcome to this week's Better Podcasting download.
All right, so we talked last week all about the Apple stats. This week, SP went and brainwashed us about his iPhone 8 Plus as well as his iPad Mini. You just see SP is just slowly moving us over to being iPhone sponsored without any of the benefits. So there you go. We don't get anything, but he's just like, let's just talk about Apple. Blah, blah. So today we're going to talk further about Apple, and today talk about the Apple Watch. Now, before we get into this is the power that you, the listener and viewer, have. This topic here came specifically from the one and only Johnny Pennington. Johnny Pennington emailed this to us a few weeks back, like 2 weeks ago, and he ended up sending this to let us know about a little way that you can use the Apple Watch to listen to podcasts. Now, this is very, very odd to me because I honestly have not kept abreast of the situation with the Apple Watches. I don't have an Apple phone, so I'm not going to get an Apple Watch. But I had no idea that you couldn't do podcasts on the Apple Watch. But there is now a bit of a workaround, right, SB?
Yeah, so first of all, there's storage issues with the Apple Watch, like the current generation 3. If you get one with LTE, it's 16 gigabytes, and without the LTE, it's 8 gigabytes. That's it. That's all you get. Yeah, it's not like you're getting 64 or 128 or 256 in the watch. You're just getting 8 or 16. So you're not going to be able to download that much in addition to the OS and the apps you have on there to begin with. But now you're getting these watches that can act as GPS, that can act as their own LTE, and you should be able to onboard podcast. So there's no podcast app that actually goes on the watch. So you have to load one of these two apps that this Business Insider article, which is entitled, "You Can Finally Listen to Podcasts on Your Apple Watch Without Having an iPhone Around." And it says that there's two apps. One app is called Workouts Plus Plus. Now, unfortunately, this one, I think, only will stream. So you need LTE connection. So you have to have one of the more expensive watches that are like $500 or something like that. But if you happen to have a non-LTE watch, which like I happen to have the box of one in my hand because, well, my daughter got one for Christmas. Go figure. She was a good girl this year and she got herself an Apple Watch. She can actually download this other app called Minicast. And Minicast is something that you can download podcasts. You know, the uploading the podcast is incredibly slow, apparently. And again, it's only 8 gigabytes. It's not 16. So you can only have so much on there. But if you're just going for a run, you don't want to take your phone with you. If you're actually, since they're waterproof, you can actually row your boat. I think you can even swim with them. And there are waterproof headphones that you can get. I've seen people use them. I can never do that, but I've seen people do. You can actually listen to music and podcasts now through your Apple Watch. And I didn't know that you needed to upload an additional app since I cannot wear, because of some health reasons, I cannot wear anything on my wrists. And so I will never have a smartwatch, but my daughter does. And now she can listen to podcasts just through her watch.
The other thing with Minicast is you actually can't adjust the volume inside the app. So it's a little bit of a limitation. Apparently, Minicast developers are very aware of some of the shortcomings and have promised to fix them as soon as Apple makes it possible. So there's a little bit of indication there. Not that we're saying anything bad about Apple, because we love Apple here on Better Podcasting, and Apple is the greatest thing in the world. Where's my money, SP? You promised me money.
I didn't promise you any money, and I know that is not what you think, but okay, we'll run with it for now. Yeah, I am an Apple, I'm not a fanboy, but I'm immersed in the iOS ecosystem, the mobile ecosystem for Apple. Might not be forever, but I am for now. And yeah, if I had a smartwatch, I'd be looking for ways to listen to podcasts on it. So this is 2 ways that you can. I'm sure that there's more, but this Business Insider article dictated to, and we would not have known it without our listener, Johnny Pennington. So thank you very much, Johnny, to bring this to our attention and through us to our listeners' attention. That's what we're doing. We're a community-based podcast. So you tell us something and we will tell everybody about that mole on your whatever.
All right, so that's going to take us to the end of episode 112. Before we wrap up, I will just say, SP, it is our final episode of 2017 and our final episode ever. No? Are we not doing that?
Of course, because you're fired again and I'm rebranding.
Okay, fair enough.
We're good.
No, seriously, this has been such a fun year for me as a podcaster. I've had a ton of fun on this show and other projects related to this show. I haven't had everything done. I have a couple of things that are kind of related to this still in the can. And I gotta say, we've expanded the Gonna Geek Gear channel. That probably wouldn't have happened without all of our podcast discussion over here. We've hit up some panels. You've hit up some panels. We've just expanded the network, and a lot of that has somehow had something to do with Better Podcasting. So I've had a lot of fun doing Better Podcasting this year with you, SP. You have especially driven this podcast forward. So I want to, on the show, thank you very much for all of your efforts this year in 2017.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I will say that Better Podcasting would not exist without you actually producing it. We talked about it right when we thought about making the show. Like, this is 3 years ago now, right? Where we actually communicated to each other and said, we're going to make the show. I said, I just can't produce it. And you're like, okay, I got it. No problem. So Better Podcasting would not exist without you producing it. And the GonnaGeek.com network would not exist without your efforts. So a lot of stuff for a lot of people are out there because of you and you making it available. And I just want to say publicly on Better Podcasting, thank you, Stephen, for making all of this happen, because without you, it just wouldn't happen.
You're welcome. It's easy to do when I have as much fun as I do. So there you go. That's the end of 2017. Remember, next week, we will take a week off. So you will not get an episode next week, but we'll be back the week after. And our first recording of Better Podcasting will happen live on Wednesday, January 10th, 2018. So come on by to geeks.live then. As well, make sure that you do check out the Geeks.live calendar. Hit us up on Twitter. Follow us there, because if there's ever a change, we always tweet it out. We do Facebook it as well, but Twitter is just easier. There's less characters, so I feel like I have to put less thought into it.
Thank you, listeners, for downloading the show, making the show possible. Without you, we just wouldn't have it. We'd be talking to ourselves. We're talking to you. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. So there you go for episode 112, the final episode of 2017. I'm Stephen John Drew saying stay frosty, stay classy, and stay podcasty.
And I'm SP saying bring back villains and vegans.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Better Podcasting. We want to hear from you. You can find all of our contact information at betterpodcasting.com. If you like the show, please consider giving us a 5-star review in iTunes. We encourage you to check out all of the other geeky podcasts available at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. This has been a Gonna Geek production. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week.